Everyone ignored the crippled beggar at the bus stop. Everyone, except Zainab. She fed him every day, until one night she saw him stand, and realized her kindness was hiding a secret powerful people would do anything to erase. In that village, kindness was no longer fashionable. People had learned to look away, to mind their own struggles, to protect what little they had. If someone fell, others whispered that it was destiny. If someone begged, they said the gods had spoken. Mercy had become a luxury nobody believed they could afford anymore. That was why everyone noticed her. Not because she was rich, not because she was beautiful, but because she did what nobody else dared to do. Every single morning, just as the sun lifted itself lazily above the zinc rooftops, she walked down the narrow red dust road with a small bowl wrapped in cloth. Her steps were light, her head often bowed, as if she was apologizing to the earth for existing. And at the corner near the abandoned bus stop, she would stop, right there, where he sat, the beggar. His legs lay twisted beneath him like branches broken by a storm. His clothes were a patchwork of faded colors that once might have been shirts, once might have been dignity. Dust clung to his skin so tightly that no one remembered what his true color looked like anymore. Most villagers passed him without blinking. Some crossed the road when they saw him. Some spat near his feet and muttered curses. Children were warned never to go close. But she knelt. Every day. She would lower the bowl gently, as though placing it before a king. Sometimes it was rice and stew. Sometimes Gary soaked in water with a little sugar. On very rare days, a small piece of meat rested on top like a miracle. She never spoke much. She just smiled, nodded, and left. And the beggar never said a word. Not once. That silence was what unsettled people the most. Why does he never thank her? Is he dumb? Or pretending? Maybe he's cursed. The rumors grew faster than crops in rainy season. They said the beggar was once a powerful man who offended the spirits. Others swore he was a thief paying for his sins. Some even claimed he was not crippled at all, that he only twisted his legs during the day and straightened them at night. But nobody knew, and nobody cared enough to find out. Except her. Her name was Zainab. She lived with her aunt in a single-room apartment behind the old tailoring shop. The kind of place where rainwater leaked through the ceiling and hope learned how to whisper instead of shout. Zainab had lost her parents years ago, taken by sickness that arrived like a thief in the night and left nothing but silence behind. Since then, life had taught her to survive on very little and expect even less. She sold fruits in the market. Oranges, bananas, sometimes groundnuts when business was slow. Whatever she didn't sell, she brought home. Whatever she didn't eat, she shared. That was how the beggar became part of her routine. Not because she was rich, not because she wanted praise, but because she remembered what hunger felt like when it refused to leave. The first day she fed him, it was accidental. She had been walking home, tired, feet aching, heart heavy. She saw him sitting there, eyes closed, head tilted slightly as though listening to something far away. She almost passed. Almost. But something about the way his fingers trembled as he held his empty bowl stopped her. She turned back. Kneeling beside him, she placed her food down and whispered, "Please eat." He opened his eyes slowly. They were not the eyes of a madman. They were not the eyes of a fool. They were calm, deep, watching. He nodded once and began to eat, carefully, as if every grain mattered. Zainab walked away with a strange tightness in her chest. The next day she returned. Then the next. Then it became a habit. That habit soon became a topic. "Zainab has started feeding that useless beggar again." One woman laughed at the market. "Maybe she wants blessings," another said. "Or maybe she's foolish," someone else added. Even her aunt warned her. "People like that bring bad luck," she said one night, adjusting her wrapper. "You don't know his past." Zainab only nodded. She didn't know his past, but she knew her heart. Weeks passed. The village grew used to the sight. The poor girl kneeling beside the broken man. Yet the mockery never stopped. If anything, it grew sharper. Some boys began clapping whenever she approached. Some men joked loudly, asking if she planned to marry him. One woman spat and said, "You can't save everyone." Zainab kept walking. But then, something strange began to happen. She noticed that the beggar always knew when she was coming. Even before her shadow touched the ground, his head would lift slightly. His hands would move, readying the bowl. Sometimes, when she was late, he would glance down the road as if expecting her. How did he know? She never made noise. She never called his name. Yet he knew. One morning, as she placed the bowl down, her wrapper slipped slightly. The beggar reached out. Not to grab, not to beg, but to gently push the bowl closer to her knee, stopping it from spilling. His movement was quick, controlled, too controlled. Zainab froze for half a second. Beggar hands were supposed to shake. Beggar hands were supposed to be weak. His were not. She looked at his face. He avoided her eyes. For the first time, unease crept into her kindness. Still, she said nothing. Days later, she returned to find him already sitting straighter than usual. His clothes were still torn, his legs still twisted, but something about his posture had changed. It was subtle, but Zainab noticed. She always noticed. That day, as she stood to leave, she heard a sound behind her. Not a word. A breath. Deep, measured. She turned. The beggar's eyes were on her back, sharp and thoughtful, like someone about to speak but choosing silence instead. Her heart skipped. That night she couldn't sleep. She kept seeing his hands, his eyes, that calm, unsettling silence. The village drums beat somewhere far away, carrying stories of ancestors and secrets buried under dust. Zainab stared at the ceiling and wondered why her kindness suddenly felt like it was standing at the edge of something unknown. The next morning, she almost didn't go. Almost. But habits are stubborn things. She wrapped the bowl, stepped outside, walked the red dust road. As she approached the bus stop, she slowed. The beggar was there, waiting. But this time there was something new, something wrong. At his feet, half covered by dust, lay an object that had never been there before. Zainab's steps faltered. Her heart tightened, because whatever that object was, it did not belong to a man everyone believed was helpless. And that was the moment Zainab realized. She might not be the one saving the beggar. And the story she thought she understood had only just begun. Zainab stopped walking. The village noise around her faded into a dull hum as her eyes fixed on the object near the beggar's feet. It was small, partially buried in dust, metallic. At first, she told herself it was nothing. Maybe a discarded tool, maybe rubbish blown there by the harmattan wind. But her chest tightened anyway, because beggars did not own things like that. The beggar noticed her hesitation. Slowly, carefully, he shifted his foot, nudging the object deeper into the dirt, hiding it from view. The movement was subtle, almost respectful, as though he didn't want to startle her. That scared her more than if he had panicked. Zainab forced her feet to move. She knelt and placed the bowl down, but her hands trembled despite her effort to stay calm. The beggar did not eat immediately. He looked at her, not at the food, at her. For a moment, the world between them felt painfully small. Then he lowered his eyes and began to eat as usual. Zainab stood up too quickly, murmured a quiet prayer, and walked away without looking back. That day, she sold her fruits absent-mindedly. She gave wrong change twice. When customers spoke to her, she heard them as though from underwater. Her thoughts kept returning to that object, that movement, that silence. By evening, the rumors had shifted. "You noticed it too?" one woman whispered to another at the well. "Something is not right about that beggar," a man said, shaking his head. "No one stays broken for that long and remains that calm." When Zainab reached home, her aunt was waiting. "I heard you're still feeding him," she said, voice low. "Zainab, some kindness attracts trouble." Zainab wanted to argue. She wanted to say hunger was worse than fear, but the words refused to come. That night, sleep abandoned her completely. The moonlight spilled into the room, pale and watchful. Zainab lay awake, listening to distant dogs barking, to footsteps passing and fading, to the soft breathing of her aunt beside her. Then she heard something else. A sound she could not explain. Not from outside. From her thoughts. A quiet question that refused to leave her alone. Who is he? The next morning, she delayed her visit. She told herself she would go later. But as the sun climbed higher, guilt pressed on her chest like a weight. She wrapped the bowl and stepped out. As she approached the bus stop, she slowed again. The beggar was there. But this time he was not alone. Two boys stood nearby, laughing loudly. One kicked dust toward him. The other mimicked his twisted legs, wobbling dramatically as if it were a joke. Zainab's stomach turned. She watched from a distance, heart pounding. The beggar did nothing. He did not beg. He did not protest. He did not even flinch. He simply waited. The boys grew bored and left. Only then did the beggar lift his head. And for the first time, Zainab saw something she could not unsee. Anger. Not wild anger. Not desperate anger. Controlled anger. The kind that sits quietly and waits. When he noticed her, the anger vanished as though it had never existed. She approached slowly. As she knelt, he surprised her. He pushed the bowl back toward her. Once. Firmly. Zainab froze. You don't want it? She whispered. The beggar shook his head. Then, very slowly, he pointed down the road. Toward the market. Toward the people. Zainab's breath caught. What do you mean? She asked. He did not answer. He never did. But that night, something happened that shook the entire village. A goat went missing. In a place where everyone counted their animals like children, nothing disappeared without explanation. People searched. Accusations flew. Whispers crawled through the night air like insects. By morning, the goat was found. Alive. Tied neatly behind the abandoned bus stop. No rope marks. No signs of struggle. Just waiting. Fear crept into the village like a silent visitor. Some said it was thieves playing tricks. Some blamed spirits. Some blamed the beggar. Zainab heard her name mentioned alongside his. She's involved, someone said. Who feeds a man like that every day? Another asked. Maybe she knows something. Zainab's chest burned with fear and confusion. She didn't go to the bus stop that day. Or the next. The bowl remained empty on her table. On the third day, guilt defeated fear. She returned. The beggar was there. But something was wrong. His clothes looked cleaner. Not new, but cleaner. Dust had been brushed away deliberately. His face, though still worn, looked sharper, more defined. He looked prepared. Zainab swallowed hard. I didn't come because I was afraid, she said quietly, surprising herself. The beggar nodded once. Then he did something he had never done before. He reached into the dust beside him. Slowly, deliberately, and pulled out the object she had seen days earlier. He placed it between them. Zainab's breath stopped. It was a phone. Old, scratched, but unmistakably a phone. Not the kind beggars owned. Not in that village. Her hands shook. You use this? She whispered. The beggar did not answer. Instead, he slid it back into the dirt and looked up at her with an expression that felt like a warning. That was when Zainab knew. This was no accident. This was no coincidence. The kindness she thought she was offering was standing on top of a secret. That evening, as she walked home, someone followed her. She heard footsteps behind her. Slow, measured, careful. She turned. No one was there, but the air felt watched. At home, her aunt bolted the door. People are asking questions, she said. Dangerous questions. Zainab lay awake again, heart racing. Then, just before dawn, she heard a knock. Soft. 3 taps. She sat up, frozen. Another knock. Her aunt stirred. Did you hear that? The knock came again. Zainab stood slowly and moved toward the door. Her hand hovered over the latch. And from the other side, a voice she had never heard before spoke. Low, calm, and terrifyingly familiar. Zainab, the voice said. I need your help now. Her blood ran cold. Because the beggar had never spoken. Zainab's hand fell away from the latch. Her heart slammed against her ribs as if trying to escape. The voice outside the door was calm. Too calm. Not rushed. Not desperate. Patient. Zainab, it said again. Please. Her aunt was fully awake now. Who is that? She whispered sharply. Zainab couldn't answer. Because she knew. She stepped back from the door, shaking her head slowly. No, she whispered. It can't be. The knock came again, gentler this time. I won't come in, the voice said. I just need to speak to you. Silence stretched between them. Zainab's aunt grabbed her arm. You are not opening that door, she hissed. Do you hear me? Zainab nodded, but her feet moved anyway. She didn't open the door fully, just enough to see. A shadow fell across the threshold. The beggar stood outside, but not the way she had ever seen him. He was standing, straight, balanced, whole. Zainab's breath left her body in a silent rush. Her mind screamed, but no sound came out. His legs, those twisted, lifeless legs, were firm beneath him. Scarred, yes. Thin, yes. But very much alive. He leaned slightly on a stick, as though out of habit rather than need. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I should have told you sooner. Zainab's aunt let out a sharp cry and slammed the door shut. They backed away together, hearts pounding. That man, her aunt gasped, pressing her hand to her chest, is not what he seems. Zainab sank onto the floor. Her world tilted. The next morning, the village woke to panic. Someone had spread the story. The beggar was not crippled. The beggar had been pretending. Fear erupted like dry grass meeting fire. Men gathered in angry clusters. Women pulled their children indoors. Whispers turned into shouting. Who is he? What is he hiding? Why here? By noon, a crowd had formed near the bus stop. Zainab watched from a distance, her stomach twisted into knots. The beggar, no, the man, sat where he always had. Legs twisted again. Clothes dirty again. Head bowed. As if nothing had happened. The crowd circled him. Someone threw a stone. It missed. Another followed. The man did not flinch. Then a voice shouted, Stand up! Silence. The man remained still. A second voice screamed, We saw you last night. The man slowly lifted his head. His eyes scanned the crowd. Not with fear, not with anger, but with disappointment. That was when Zainab realized something terrifying. He had expected this. Before anyone could move, the man spoke. Loud enough for all to hear. I never stole from you, he said. I never harmed your children. I never took what wasn't given. His voice carried authority. The crowd hesitated. But you lied, someone yelled. Yes, he replied calmly. I did. That single word sent a ripple through the people. Zainab pushed forward despite her fear. Why? She cried. Why pretend? The man's eyes found hers. For safety, he said. And for truth. The crowd erupted again. Someone shouted that the police should be called. Another demanded he be beaten. Fear fed fear, growing louder by the second. Then sirens wailed in the distance. The police arrived faster than anyone expected. 2 officers stepped out, hands resting casually on their belts. Their eyes swept the scene, sharp and assessing. What's going on here? One asked. The villagers spoke over each other, accusations flying like arrows. The officer turned to the beggar. You, he said, stand up. For a moment, the man hesitated. Then slowly, deliberately, he unfolded his legs and stood. A collective gasp swept through the crowd. The officer's eyes widened. You've been pretending to be disabled? He asked. The man nodded. Yes. Why? The man glanced at Zainab, then back at the officer. Because I was hiding, he said. Hiding from who? The officer pressed. The man exhaled. From people who don't like witnesses. That word, witnesses, hung heavy in the air. The officers exchanged glances. They took him away. Zainab watched as the man who had changed her life was pushed into the back of a van. Their eyes met one last time. And in that look, she saw something that chilled her blood. Relief. That night, Zainab was summoned to the police station. They asked questions. How long had she known him? What did he tell her? Did he ever ask for help? She answered honestly. He only ever asked for food, she said. The officers scribbled notes. Finally, one leaned forward. You may have helped a dangerous man, he said carefully. Zainab swallowed. Or a good one. The officer studied her for a long moment. Sometimes, he said slowly. Those are the hardest to tell apart. Zainab was sent home. Sleep did not come. Just before dawn, a message buzzed on her phone. An unknown number. Thank you for seeing me as human. I owe you the truth. Attached was a location pin. Her heart pounded. She shouldn't go. Every instinct screamed danger. But curiosity and something deeper pulled her forward. At sunrise, she followed the pin to an unfinished building at the edge of town. The man was waiting. Clean now. Standing tall. No stick. This is where I explain, he said. Explain what? Zainab asked, voice trembling. Why I became invisible, he replied. He took a deep breath. I was once someone important, he said. Important enough to be silenced. Zainab's knees weakened. People were disappearing, he continued. I saw it. I recorded it. And when they realized I knew too much, I ran. So you hid? Zainab whispered. Yes, he said. Where no one looks twice. Her mind raced. The goat. The phone. The controlled anger. All of it was real, he said softly. The danger. The fear. The waiting. Waiting for what? She asked. He met her eyes. For someone who would treat me like a human being, not a shadow. A sudden sound echoed outside. Footsteps. Multiple. The man's expression hardened. They've found me, he said calmly. Zainab's heart thundered. Who? She whispered. He grabbed her wrist gently. If they ask, he said, tell them you never knew my name. Then he stepped forward toward the sound. And Zainab realized the truth was no longer just his burden. It was hers too. The footsteps grew louder. Zainab's breath came in shallow bursts as shadows moved across the broken walls of the unfinished building. Whoever was outside did not try to hide. They walked with confidence, the kind that comes from power, not urgency. The man released her wrist. From this point, he said quietly, you must decide who you are. Before she could ask what he meant, he stepped forward into the open. 3 men stood outside. They were not dressed like criminals. They wore clean shirts, polished shoes, and calm expressions. The kind of men villagers trusted. The kind of men people voted for. The kind of men whose names appeared on banners during elections and donation ceremonies. One of them smiled. So, he said, clapping slowly. The beggar finally got tired of begging. Zainab's stomach dropped. The man did not respond. You caused a lot of unnecessary stress, the smiling man continued. Living like a ghost. Feeding off pity. I wasn't feeding on pity, the man replied evenly. I was hiding from you. The smile faded. Did you bring what you stole? Another man asked. I didn't steal anything, he said. I kept evidence. Silence. The air thickened. Zainab felt the weight of the moment settle on her chest. This was no longer about a beggar. This was about power and the cost of seeing too much. You think anyone will believe you? The first man scoffed. A former civil servant living as a cripple? Zainab's eyes widened. Civil servant. So the rumors were wrong. He wasn't cursed. He wasn't a thief. He was a witness. I don't need them to believe me, the man replied. I just need the truth to reach daylight. The men exchanged glances. Then one laughed softly. You Africans and your belief in daylight, he said. Darkness wins more often than not. Zainab stepped forward before fear could stop her. You're wrong, she said, her voice shaking but firm. Darkness only wins when good people stay silent. The men turned, surprised. And who are you? One asked. She's nothing, the man said quickly. Leave her out of this. But it was too late. The men looked at her with new interest. Ah, the first said slowly. The girl. Zainab's heart pounded. She fed you, he continued. Did she also help you hide? No, Zainab said. I didn't know who he was, but I know who you are now. That angered them. The smiling man stepped closer. Careful, he warned. This is not a story that ends well for kind people. The man, the former beggar, reached into his pocket. Slowly, deliberately, Zainab flinched, but instead of a weapon, he pulled out the phone. He raised it. You should be more afraid, he said calmly, of what has already been sent. The men froze. What do you mean? One demanded. The man smiled faintly for the first time. Copies, he said, to journalists, to NGOs, to people who don't disappear. Silence crashed down like thunder. Sirens wailed in the distance. Real sirens this time. The men stepped back. You think this will save you? The leader hissed. You've already ruined yourself. Maybe, the man replied, but I didn't ruin my soul. Police vehicles arrived moments later. This time, the men did not smile. They were taken away quietly, no shouting, no drama. Just the sound of power being questioned for the first time. Zainab watched it all with trembling legs. When it was over, she sank to the ground, shaking. The man knelt beside her. It's finished, he said softly. What happens to you now? She asked. He looked toward the horizon. I stop hiding. News spread fast, faster than gossip. The village woke up to headlines instead of rumors, photos instead of whispers, names instead of shadows. The beggar had been a former government auditor who uncovered illegal disappearances tied to powerful figures. When threats began, he vanished, choosing the only place no one looks twice. Among the poor, among the forgotten, among the ignored, the village reacted with shame. People avoided Zainab's eyes at first. Then greetings became longer, kinder. Some even apologized. The bus stop was cleaned. The mocking stopped. The man testified publicly. Zainab attended the hearings quietly, sitting at the back. She didn't speak to reporters. She didn't chase attention. But when asked why she helped him, she said only one thing. He was hungry. Months passed. Life slowly returned to normal. One morning, Zainab returned to the bus stop. The man was gone. In his place stood a small plaque. Kindness is never wasted. Zainab smiled sadly. She turned to leave and found an envelope tucked beneath the bench. Inside was a letter. Zainab, you fed me when I was invisible. Because of you, I remembered who I was. Live well, fearless. Tears blurred her vision. With the letter was a document. A scholarship letter. Education. Opportunity. A future. Zainab laughed through her tears. The village learned a lesson it would not forget. That day, elders spoke of it like a proverb. When you feed the forgotten, you may be feeding destiny itself. And from that day forward, whenever someone asked Zainab why she still helped strangers, she answered calmly, because you never know who is hiding in plain sight.